Well, first of all, this card keeps getting better. This is another excellent fight, a real banger, and a very, very important one for the division. This is actually the fight that I want more than any other fight in that division.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Boxing Scene's Top Stories here on ProBox TV, your boxing channel. I am George D. Metellus. Quick reminder to download the ProBox TV app where apps are available to get the great insights of our world champions. We have Chris Algieri and Paulie Malignaggi joining us here on Top Stories. Well, in an attempt to maybe boost the underwhelming middleweight division, WBC President Mauricio Sulaiman says he expects middleweight champion Carlos Adames to defend his belt against top-ranked contender Hamzah Sheeraz on February 22nd in Riyadh, a card that is expected to include the heavyweight title fight with Daniel Dubois and the WBC lightweight title fight between Shakur Stevenson and William El Camarón Zepeda. All right, Chris, who do you like in this fight between Adames and Sheeraz, and why?
Well, first of all, this card keeps getting better. This is another excellent fight, a real banger, and a very, very important one for the division. This is actually the fight that I want more than any other fight in that division. I know we talk about middleweight divisions, a bit of a barren wasteland these days, but we've got Janibek at the top. Most people consider him the guy to beat. But for me, man, I really like the way Carlos Adames has looked since moving up in weight. I remember Carlos Adames back in welterweight, which I couldn't believe how he made the weight. He was killing himself to make that weight. Moves up to 54. Believe he was really struggling with the weight there as well. Fell short against Teixeira, fighting for a world title. But at 160, man, he looks like a totally different guy, man. He is an absolute beast. He brings it. He's a ton of fun to watch. Physically strong. Just a thoroughbred of a man out there doing what he needs to do at middleweight to get these very talented guys out of there. And then you got Sheeraz. I mean, he's got it all. He is a true blue chip prospect turned contender turned about to be a world champion, potentially taking over division type guy. Big fan of what I see in him, from his physicality, his size, his reach, to his power. I was very impressed when he dismantled Ammo. Another fighter that I held very high regard. Very impressed that night. Even since then, he looked spectacular once again in his last bout. So I think the timing is right. But it's a tough fight. It's a hard fight to pick who's going to win. Carlos Adames obviously has a ton of more experience. But Sheeraz, like I said, he's one of those guys. He's just about a can't miss. But I don't know, man. I really don't know where I lean in this fight. This is a real pick-em fight, but it's an excellent matchup. And I think in terms of the timing, I love it.
Yeah, I'm going to kind of piggyback off that, what you were saying, Champ. I honestly think Sheeraz is possibly the future of this weight class. But it's interesting because I feel like Adames, even though Janibek is the more sort of seasoned champion, I guess we can say, I feel like Adames is better than Janibek at this point, So while you may be the future of the weight class in Sheeraz, you're taking on the toughest of the world champions. So it's a bit riskier, It's not always, usually when we got a new guy coming up the ladder, even if he's promising, a lot of times we'll see him pick off the weakest of the champions just to sort of step into the world championship realm and then start to pick off the more difficult fights. But, Sheeraz is going right after Adames in this fight. And, of course, credit to Adames, he's not sitting on his laurels. And, of course, Sheeraz is one of those hungry prospects who looks super good on the way up, who will take on anybody because he's got that kind of style and he's got that kind of confidence in what he can do. So it sets up a really nice event for us, really, as fans to watch this. This is a very solid matchup. As good as I feel like Adames is, like I said, I feel like Sheeraz is the future. I slightly lean towards Sheeraz in this fight. But, again, it's the toughest of the champions. You rarely see this. I remember Mayweather did this with Gennaro Hernandez. Nobody seems to remember this because everybody's busy talking about Floyd, and he picks the O and this and that. But the Floyd at 130 pounds was unbelievable. And he actually, I remember when he made the Gennaro Hernandez fight, when that fight was made, I'm like, man, I was like, this guy's going after the toughest of the world champions. That's crazy. And he's only been a pro for a couple of years, so he's out of his mind. Well, I was out of my mind for thinking that because Floyd ended up dominating Hernandez and causing him to retire. But similar here. I feel like Adames is obviously Adames doesn't have the background that Hernandez had. At that point, Hernandez had been a longer reigning champion and so on and so forth, and had a big reputation in the sport. But Adames, for those of us in the know, like you're saying, Champ, you rate him. For those of us in the know that have watched him, he is not easy to deal with, and he's gotten better. He's continued to improve. He's no easy picnic for anybody. So for your first world championship fight, to have to go up against Carlos Adames and to have to live up to the expectation against a Carlos Adames, it's not easy, but it's going to be it's a fight that I really look forward to seeing.
Yeah, Paulie, let's piggyback a little bit off of what Chris said about Sheeraz going forward in the future of this division. He's 6'3", 21-0, 17 knockouts, 15 consecutive stoppages coming into this fight against Adames if it goes through. Is he the future of the middleweight division? Is he the guy that kind of revived things at 160?
Yeah, he could be. You know, he certainly has that the eye test, you know, where you look at him and, you know, he's getting a lot of popularity in the UK. He's got the explosive style, fan-friendly. And I think he's, you know, going to continue in that mold. But again, this is not an easy fight. This is not an easy champion to beat, you know. And the momentum doesn't necessarily come to a screeching halt if you lose to Adames. But certainly, you got to, you know, it ends up having to reposition you a little bit if you're not able to beat Adames. I'm a little bit surprised that this is the fight that ended up being made. I know people could talk and so on and so forth, but you don't usually see the hottest prospect taking on the most difficult world champion in his first title shot. So it's good for us, but it's no easy proposition for either guy.
Yeah, Chris, what is it about Sheeraz that he could be the guy that kind of revives the attention at middleweight?
He's got it all. He's got it all. Size, he's got the power, he's got the mentality. Obviously, he's going for the toughest fights possible. Yeah, to your point, champ, normally you see like, oh, Sheeraz, all right, we're gonna build this guy into the future. Let's go get Lara, the 42-year-old Cuban who hasn't been that busy.
They did try to get Janibek, right? He turned it down, right? So they did try that already.
So, and Janibek is the guy, I think he has 2 of the belts, and he's the one that most people look at like he's the top of the division. But I also agree with you. I think Carlos Adames is the guy to beat. So he tried for the Janibek fight. He goes for next in line, which is Carlos Adames. But honestly, you get past Adames at this stage of your career for Sheeraz. You know, Teddy, our esteemed colleague Teddy Atlas, so he says you become world champion, you get 30% better. You know, 30% better Sheeraz getting past a guy like Carlos Adames at this point of his career. There's no stopping him.
I think you get by Adames, you're pretty much unifying unless the guys are running from you.
But that being said, again, I haven't picked who's winning this fight yet.
Right.
I don't know that he gets past Carlos Adames at this stage of his career. I've not seen him physically pushed by anyone. And Carlos Adames is one of the most physical guys in the sport today. I mean, he is an absolute beast. I've called a ton of his fights. I've watched him for years. He's excellent, and he's gotten a lot better, like you said, champ. Great gas tank, everything. This is a supreme test for Sheeraz, and we're really going to see what this kid is made of and what's the future going to look like on that night.
And it should be fascinating to see what happens there between Carlos Adames and Hamzah Sheeraz. If that does go through for the WBC belt, the Dominican will look to eliminate one of the best contenders in all of boxing. And Sheeraz is the lowest he's ranked across the 4 governing bodies is 6th by the WBA. So he is highly rated and number 1. And he is number 1, obviously, in the WBC as well. We'll see if that fight takes place. Should be a banger. Might even be the fight of the night on that card on February 22nd. Depending on, obviously, what happens with Daniel Dubois and his IBF heavyweight title defense. Should be a great fight. Looking forward to that one between Adames and Sheeraz. I'd like to remind you to scan the QR code, like, subscribe, and leave your comments on our YouTube channel. And don't forget to download the ProBox TV app, where apps are available to watch the next edition of the Contender Series, December 7th. We are back in Ireland. Should be a great fight card. Looking forward to it. And you can watch it on YouTube and on the ProBox TV app. I'm George DeMatteis, and this is Boxing Scene's Top Stories.
ProBox TV Contender Series. On December 7th, look for an all-out Irish war as Dylan the Real Deal Moran battles Tyrone the Mighty Celt McKenna at the top of a stacked ProBox-worthy card.
For more ProBox TV, scan the QR code on the screen or go to the App Store and Google Play. ProBox TV, your boxing channel.